The city was waking slowly, like a giant stretching its arms after a restless night. Street vendors dragged their carts into position, the first buses hissed at their stops, and the early morning light spilled onto the cracked pavements of Old Market Square. Among the noise and bustle, a small figure sat curled beside the brick wall of a shuttered pharmacy, a girl no older than 12, wrapped in a blanket that had more holes than cloth. Her hair fell in tangled ropes down her shoulders, and her eyes, far too alert for a child, scanned every passerby with the mix of hope and disappointment she had learned to hide. Her name was Amaya. She had slept with her back to the wall so no one could sneak up on her, a habit she developed after too many nights that taught her caution. But this morning she woke with a strange feeling in her chest, like the world was holding its breath. Something was coming. She didn't know what. Across the street, a black SUV pulled up to the curb, gleaming like it had never known dirt. The door opened, and out stepped a man whose presence made people instinctively straighten their posture. Tall, poised, wrapped in a tailored charcoal coat that probably cost more than everything Amaya had ever owned in her life. Alexander Hale. The world knew him as the coldest billionaire in the city, the kind of man whose handshake could shift markets and whose signature could build or destroy entire companies. But beneath all the press photographs and breathless headlines, he was simply a man who hadn't slept in 3 days. Because last night, his doctors had warned him that he had become a walking time bomb. His stress levels were through the roof, his blood pressure unreadable, and if he didn't slow down, the consequences would be catastrophic. But Alexander didn't slow down. Couldn't. Not when his entire empire depended on him. Not when the board was circling like vultures. Sleep and rest were luxuries he didn't have time for. His assistant, a man in his early 40s named Lindell, hurried behind him carrying a leather briefcase and a tablet. "Sir, your schedule for today." "Push the meetings," Alexander said, not slowing his stride. "We have to stop by the lab first." Lindell blinked. "Sir, you didn't mention—" "I am mentioning it now." They approached a small breakfast stall at the corner, where fresh pastries steamed on metal trays. Alexander rarely ate street food, but this morning he could barely stand. His stomach felt hollow and his head throbbed. Maybe food would help him think. He stepped toward a tray of warm meat pies, golden brown, flaky crusts, the smell of spices drifting through the air, and just as he reached for one, a voice pierced through the noise. "Don't eat that." Alexander froze. At first, he didn't even realize the voice was talking to him. Then he turned his head. The ragged little girl was on her feet, staring at him with such desperation that even he couldn't ignore it. "Sir, don't," she repeated, breathless, panicked. "Please don't eat that pie." Lindell's eyes widened. "Girl, step back. Don't bother Mr. Hale." Alexander raised a hand, silencing him. Something about the girl's voice, the urgency of it, sent a chill down his spine. "And why," he said slowly, "should I not eat it?" Her chest heaved. She looked terrified, but she forced the words out. "Because someone poisoned it." The street fell quiet, unnaturally quiet. The vendor froze mid-movement. Passers-by turned. Even the traffic noise seemed to dim. Alexander stared at her. For a long moment he believed she must be lying. Children lied to survive, especially street children. Maybe she just wanted attention. Or money. But the look in her eyes, it wasn't the look of someone trying to trick him. It was the look of someone begging him not to die. "How would you know that?" he asked. Her voice cracked. "Because I saw him. I saw the man who did it." She pointed with a trembling hand to a metal bin near the alleyway. "He dropped the bottle there. He was wearing black gloves and a cap. I thought he was just cleaning something, until I saw him pour something on top of the pies when the vendor wasn't looking." The vendor gasped and stumbled back from his own stall. "What? Girl, what are you saying? Who? When?" But Alexander wasn't looking at the vendor. He was looking at her, and in that moment he saw something that made his blood run cold. Fear. Not the ordinary kind. Not fear of hunger or cold or punishment. Fear of being watched. Fear of being followed. Like she knew something she shouldn't. "Show me," Alexander said softly. Amaya hesitated. "If I go with you, they'll see me." "Who?" Alexander asked. She shook her head violently. "I can't say." Lindell placed a hand on Alexander's arm. "Sir, this is absurd. She's a homeless child. She's probably making it up." Alexander didn't answer. Because that was when he saw it, just for a fraction of a second, At the end of the alley, a figure in a black cap watching them. When the figure saw Alexander looking, he turned and disappeared into the shadows. Something icy settled in Alexander's gut. "Call corporate security," he whispered to Lindell. "Now." Lindell swallowed hard and stepped away to make the call. Alexander crouched so he was eye level with the girl. "What's your name?" "Amaya." "Amaya," he said carefully. "I need to know how long you've been watching the man who poisoned the food." Her lips trembled. "I don't watch him. He watches me." Alexander stared, stunned for the first time in years. "What do you mean?" She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "He wants something. I don't know what. But he's been following me for 3 days. Every time I move places to sleep, he appears again. Last night he whispered that he knew who I was." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "But I don't even know who I am." Alexander's breath hitched. Before he could respond, Lindell rushed forward. "Sir," he exclaimed, "security says there have been 2 attempts on your life this week, both suspicious. They think someone inside the company is targeting you." Alexander straightened slowly. His eyes shifted back to the warm pie he had almost eaten, then to the girl who had stopped him. "Amaya," he said quietly, "you may have just saved my life." She shook her head. "I wasn't saving your life," she whispered. Confusion flickered across his face. Her next words nearly knocked the breath from his lungs. I think they tried to poison you because of me." Her hands curled into fists. "And I don't know why." The police arrived within minutes, their flashing lights painting the street in crimson and cobalt. Officers questioned the vendor, took samples of the pies, dusted for prints. But Alexander wasn't paying attention to them. His focus stayed fixed on the little girl who sat on the back seat of his SUV, shivering beneath a thick blanket Lindell had wrapped around her. She looked impossibly small, like a fragile secret someone had been trying to destroy. The police chief approached Alexander. "Mr. Hale, we'll run tests on the food, but we advise you not to leave the city until we determine who's behind this." Alexander nodded. "Do whatever you must." He dismissed them and climbed into the back seat beside Amaya. Lindell sat in the passenger seat, tapping rapidly on his tablet. "Sir, I've already alerted the board and arranged full biometric lockdown at Hale Tower. Also, the medical team wants to check your vitals given the stress you've been under." "I'm fine," Alexander said sharply. But Amaya studied him with those large dark eyes. "No," she whispered. "You're not." He looked at her, startled. "What makes you say that?" "You're holding your chest," she said, "and your hands are shaking." Alexander glanced down. He hadn't even realized. He exhaled shakily. "It's nothing, just exhaustion." She lowered her eyes. "My mother used to say that exhaustion is the first warning your body gives before it gives up." That hit him harder than he expected. "Where is your mother now?" The girl didn't answer. Her silence was like a door quietly closing. Alexander changed the subject. "Tell me again what the man said to you last night." Amaya swallowed. He said, "I know who you really are, and someone is willing to pay a lot to bring you back." A chill crawled up Alexander's spine. "Bring you back to where?" Her voice trembled. "I don't know." Alexander turned to Lindell. "Run a search. Missing child reports from the last 2 years. Age range 10 to 12. Name Amaya." Lindell shook his head. "Sir, Amaya may not even be her real name." The girl flinched, as if the thought hurt her. "Still," Alexander said, his voice leaving no room for argument, "search." The car was silent except for the hum of the road. Amaya shifted uncomfortably. "Why are you helping me?" Alexander looked out the window for a moment before answering. "Because you saved my life." She shook her head. "You don't owe me anything." "No," he said softly. "But perhaps I owe the world something." Her brows furrowed in confusion. Alexander was not a man who spoke of feelings, but something inside him cracked open as he looked at the thin, frightened child beside him. "I was once helped by a stranger," he said quietly. "A long time ago, when I was not much older than you. I survived because of that kindness. And I promised myself that if I ever saw someone else drowning, I would not look away." Amaya stared at him, stunned. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. When the SUV approached Hale Tower, an enormous glass structure piercing the clouds, Amaya shrank into her seat. "It's too big," she whispered. Alexander offered a faint smile. "It grows on you. Security guards escorted them through private entrances, away from public eyes. The moment they stepped inside his penthouse, Amaya froze. Soft carpeting, warm golden lights, a panoramic view of the city, and silence. Deep, comfortable silence. Her throat tightened. People like her didn't belong in places like this. Alexander noticed her hesitation and knelt beside her. "You're safe here." She shook her head. "No place is safe." "Here," he repeated firmly. "You are—" Something flickered across her face. Hope? Disbelief? Fear? Maybe all three. Lindell returned from the hallway. "Sir, the medical team is waiting." "I said I'm fine," Alexander began. Then his vision blurred. Amaya gasped just as his knees buckled. "Sir!" He hit the floor hard. The world tilted sideways. His chest felt like a fist was squeezing the air out of him. He heard shouting, Lindell's frantic voice, Amaya's cry, but the words were muffled, far away. For a moment he felt weightless. Then everything went dark. Hours later, he woke to the prickling smell of disinfectant and the beeping of medical monitors. The ceiling was unfamiliar, the bed softer than the hospital beds of his childhood. He was in his penthouse medical suite. Lindell sat beside him, exhausted. "You collapsed," Lindell said quietly. "Your heart nearly gave out." Alexander felt a faint ache in his chest. "I told you I was fine." "Sir," Lindell said, voice cracking, "with respect, you're not indestructible." Alexander looked away. Then he noticed a small figure asleep on the couch, curled under a blanket too big for her. Amaya. Something warm stirred in his chest. "Has she eaten?" he asked. "She refused food until you woke up," Lindell whispered. Alexander watched her breathe softly, her face peaceful for the first time. "She said," Lindell continued, "that she wasn't going to let you die, not after she saved you this morning." Alexander let out a shaky breath. "The poisoned pie," he murmured. "The man following her, it's all connected." Lindell nodded grimly. Security traced footage from the alley. The man in the cap followed Amaya from at least 3 different locations in the last 2 days. We believe she was the target. And you were collateral. Alexander's blood ran cold. Someone had been hunting this child, and he had stepped into the crossfire without knowing it. He stared at her, sleeping so peacefully. No child should have enemies. No child should be hunted. What kind of world allowed this? He made a decision then. A decision that surprised even him. From this moment forward, he whispered, "She stays under my protection." Lindell exhaled in relief. "I already arranged extra security." "No," Alexander said, shaking his head. "Not security." Lindell blinked. "Sir, I'm taking responsibility for her." His eyes didn't leave the girl. "Personally," Lindell froze. "Sir, people will talk. I don't care. What will you tell the board? The media? They'll ask why a billionaire suddenly has a street child living in his home." Alexander's voice was ice. "I will tell them the truth," Lindell whispered, horrified. "Which part of the truth, sir?" Alexander's eyes softened, not with weakness, but with something far more powerful. "The part," he said quietly, "where she saved my life. And then, behind them." A soft voice spoke. "Mr. Hale." They turned. Amaya was awake. Her eyes were full of fear and tears. "Someone is coming for you," she whispered. "Because of me." Alexander held her gaze. "Then let them come." His voice was steel. "They'll have to go through me first." The attack came sooner than anyone expected. It was just after midnight. The city lights flickered through the floor-to-ceiling windows like scattered stars. Amaya sat at the dining table eating soup, slowly, shyly, while Alexander watched her from across the room, pretending to read emails but really paying attention to every small movement she made. He noticed how she always kept her back to the wall, how she flinched at distant sirens, how she ate like she wasn't sure when she'd get food again. He felt something twist painfully in his chest. No child should live like this, and yet she had. Out on the balcony, 3 armed security guards patrolled. Lindell was reviewing a list of missing child reports on his tablet, frustration building with each no-match result. "We'll find where you came from," Lindell assured softly. Amaya looked down. "I don't know if I want to know." Alexander approached her slowly. "Why not?" She hesitated, voice barely a breath. What if I was taken from someone who didn't want me? His heart ached. Before he could answer, a sudden alarm blared, a shrill, piercing warning that shook the entire penthouse. Lindell's eyes shot up. Security breach, 21st floor. Alexander reacted instantly. Get her behind me, now. Before Lindell could move, the lights cut out. Darkness swallowed everything. Amaya screamed. Alexander grabbed her, pulling her against his chest. It's all right, I'm here. The emergency red lights flickered on, and that was when they saw them. 4 armed men in black tactical gear, standing at the shattered balcony doors, guns raised, faces hidden. One stepped forward. His voice was distorted through a modulator. Hand over the girl. Alexander stepped in front of her, shielding her completely. Over my dead body. The man nodded once. That can be arranged. The room erupted into chaos. Security guards burst in from the hallway, firing warning shots. The intruders retaliated. Glass shattered. Furniture splintered. Alarms wailed. The air filled with smoke and the bitter scent of gunfire. Alexander pushed Amaya behind a steel pillar. Stay here, don't move, I'm not leaving you, she cried. You must, no! A bullet whizzed past them, embedding itself in the marble, and then, in the smoke. The leader aimed directly at Alexander's heart. Time seemed to slow. Amaya saw the gun, saw Alexander exposed, saw the shot about to fire, and something inside her snapped. She ran, not away, toward him. No! Alexander roared, reaching out, but she threw herself in front of him. The gun fired. She braced for pain, but it never came. Instead, a massive motorcycle engine roared from outside the balcony, then another, then another. The intruders turned, just as 3 enormous figures burst into the penthouse through the broken glass. Leather jackets, steel boots, skulls painted on helmets. The Iron Vindicator Biker Brotherhood, a notorious but strangely principled biker group that controlled the outer districts of the city. The leader, a mountain of muscle with a beard like a storm cloud, cracked his knuckles. You're in the wrong building, he growled. The intruders hesitated, just for a moment, but it was enough. The bikers charged. The penthouse shook with the impact. Alexander grabbed Amaya and pulled her to safety as the bikers tore through the attackers with efficient, merciless strength. Security joined in. The intruders were overwhelmed, disarmed, pinned. Within minutes, it was over. Silence fell. The bearded biker leader approached Alexander, breathing hard. Got your emergency call, he said. Didn't know you had a kid in danger. Alexander tightened his grip on Amaya. She's under my protection. The biker nodded. Then she's under ours, too. For the first time in days, Amaya breathed easily. No fear, no running. She looked at Alexander. Why did they want me? She whispered. Alexander knelt beside her. We'll find out. Lindell approached, holding a tablet. Sir, we found something. A match. The room held its breath. Her real identity, Lindell said softly. She was kidnapped 2 years ago. From another city. Her parents. They're still searching for her. Amaya's eyes filled with tears. My parents. Alexander touched her shoulder gently. They never stopped looking. Her voice broke. But I don't remember them. That's all right, he said softly. They remember you, she cried then, quietly, trembling, and Alexander held her as if she were made of glass. The bikers stood guard. The night wind blew through the shattered windows, and for the first time in years, Alexander felt something warm bloom in his chest. Something he had forgotten existed. When she finally pulled away, she wiped her eyes. When I'm safe, and when I meet them again. Yes, he said gently. I don't want to leave you, she whispered. Alexander's throat tightened. You won't, he promised softly. If you want me in your life, I will be there. Always. She hugged him. A small, fragile girl. A broken billionaire. 2 lives that were never meant to cross, but saved each other anyway. Outside, the city lights shimmered. Inside, Alexander Hale made a silent vow. He didn't know who had ordered the hit. He didn't know why they wanted Amaya, but he would find out. And when he did, nothing in the world would stop him from protecting her, because sometimes family isn't given. Sometimes it's found, and sometimes it's the person who grabs your hand and says, "Don't eat that," and saves your life before you ever realize it needed saving.